In this video, we're going to see how to populate an autocomplete text view in Android using Kotlin. Autocomplete text view means as we start typing, it filters down a list of possible words and gives us only words that contain the type that we've the text that we've typed, rather. So what we want to do is we want to populate that dictionary of words that we'll use to autocomplete. So I have here from a previous video a collection of plants that I'm storing in this variable called plants. To create an autocomplete text view or to populate that with our list of words is actually fairly straightforward. All we need to do is declare a variable. We'll say, or we can make that a val adapter equals new ArrayAdapter. So an ArrayAdapter is a, don't need new. An ArrayAdapter is a class that essentially takes a collection and makes it friendly for our user interface. So we need to tell it what type of data is in the collection, and that's going to be plant DTO, which is a DTO class, or essentially a data class that we came up with earlier. It has a plant ID, a genus, species, so on and so forth. So we start by saying, I want this ArrayAdapter to hold a collection of plant DTOs. We'll go ahead and import that. And then we need to start the constructor. The first thing we need is a context object. We can pass in the application context. The next thing we need is a layout that we want to use as the user is typing into this autocomplete. So that's going to be android.r.layout .simple expandable list item 1. That'll work, or we could use simple list item 1. Either one's fine. And finally, we need the collection that we want to put into our ArrayAdapter. We got that one previously. That's this plants up here, this plants variable. Now, if you don't already have that, that's simply a, here I'll go into plant list and show you. That is simply a list of plant DTO objects. That's what we're pushing in. So if you're just watching this video and you haven't seen the videos prior to it, what you'll need to pass into your ArrayAdapter is some kind of list of DTO objects. When I say DTO, I mean data transfer objects. In Kotlin, that is something that's a class that begins with the word data. So essentially, you need some kind of list or array list of objects that are data classes, if that makes sense. So anyway, we go back and almost there. We have our ArrayAdapter. The next thing we need to do is we need to set this ArrayAdapter on our autocomplete text view. So I go back to my Android project, and I'm going to take a look at our content GPS of plant, and we'll expand this up a little bit. And you might remember this very first item we have here is called ACT plant name, and it is an autocomplete text view. So that's what I want to say, hey, autocomplete text view, this is the list of the plants that I want you to use in your dictionary as the user is typing. So ACT plant name. Now, you might remember from a previous video, I'm using the Kotlin Android extensions, which give me direct access to all of the widgets that I put on my layout. In other words, I don't need to do butter knife or a find view by ID. I just need to type the widget name. So ACT plant name dot set adapter, and then let's pass in adapter, just like so. Easy as that. Now I'm going to go ahead and start this off, and I want to show you what it looks like by default. We are going to need to do one more step, but it's easy to forget that one more step, which is called overriding the toString method. So I want to show you what happens if we don't do that extra step. First though, the emulator's coming up, and if you take a look, you see we have this plants collection. You notice it's an array list, and you can also see here in the variables tab that each object is a DTO. So it's a DTO that represents a plant. You see several different things, glossy abelia. We can go on and on and on. An acacia, a wattle tree, so on and so forth. So we have our dictionary that we want to use in our autocomplete. F8, F8, F9, and we'll set up that autocomplete. Now let's go to our emulator and let's see what happens when I start typing in the word Eastern. You see, it does autocomplete, but it's not really friendly, is it? It gives us this plant DTO, it gives us a plant ID, genus equals Cercis, species equals Canadensis. So we can see that it is indeed working because the Cercis canadensis is an eastern redbud. We have an eastern red cedar here, eastern white pine. I know this just because I'm mentally mapping the genus to its English name. So it is working, but it's not giving us a list that's user-friendly. So how do we fix that? Well, we have to go to our data class, our plant DTO, and what we have to do is we have to tell it what we want to return when we want this to look like a string. To do that, we simply override a method called toString, or a function called toString. You see, as soon as I start typing 2, it gives me a little hint here, and it's going to give me a template that I can put in whatever I want. So override fun toString : string. It means I'm overriding a function called toString, and I need to return a string. In Kotlin, it gives us an easy way to handle this. What we can do is we can simply say return, and then double quote. Unlike Java, we don't have to do all kinds of plus when we need to concatenate strings together. We can if we want, but that ends up being a little pain in the rear, and it also consumes a lot of memory because every time you use a concatenation operator in Java, you end up with a new string in memory. In Kotlin, we can do like so: return double quote, then we'll say $, common, so the common name, space, $genus, space, $species, space, $cultivar. So this is going to concatenate all 4 of these attributes that we defined above, and because I've spaced them out with 1 space, it's going to put a space between them as well. And just for good measure, I can go ahead and say ID if I want to as well, or plant ID in this case. Let me save and redeploy, and let's see what this improved version looks like. With the changes deployed, I pull up the emulator and I start typing Eastern, and take a look. Do you see when it auto-completes, it's giving me things that make more sense to a human. So Eastern Redbud, and you see as I start typing red, it's limiting this list down by only plants that contain the word Eastern and red. I can keep typing, and we see Eastern Redbud, Cercis canadensis, and then plant ID 83, which is exactly what I would expect. So in this video, we've seen how to do 2 things. How to create an ArrayAdapter, which serves as the source of an autocomplete text. We've also seen how to override toString in a Kotlin class. I hope this video has been helpful. Look forward to seeing you in the next. Thank you.